일리노이 서버브에 위치한 윌링시. 2019년 기준 인구 38,600여 명으로 나일스시와 같은 거주지보다 비즈니스 밀집 도시로 잘 알려져 있다. 약 19%에 해당하는 7천여 명 이상의 아시안이 살고 있다. 지난해 재선에 성공해서 4년의 새로운 임기를 시작한 윌링시의 대표 패트릭 호커 시장을 만나본다.
My name is Pat Horker. I am the village president of Wheeling. I've just begun my second term. They're 4-year terms. I was first elected in 2017, and I was recently re-elected in the beginning of 2021. Before that, I served 16 years as a trustee, and I've been a member of the community for my whole life. I am a local businessman, yes. My family is involved in construction, mechanics, the farming, of course, and I manage the family greenhouses and flower shops. So technically, I suppose I'm a florist.
Oh.
My first term as mayor, it is different than being a trustee, and it's not actually mayor. It's village president, which is it has less authority than mayor, which I think is fine. I think it's a safer method. As village president, there's very little that I can do on my own. I can't walk in and say, hire this person, fire that person. Any decisions our council makes, our town council makes, there must be 4 people who agree with the decision, counting me. We have 6 trustees and me, so it's an odd number of people. And most of the actions that take place in our town require a simple majority of 4 to do it. And again, I think this is a much safer form of government. It prohibits, it prevents one person from having too much authority. So my first 4-year term as president was a learning process. Yeah. It's just like anything. When you start, you figure out what everybody's name is. You figure out who does what. Now, I did have some advantage because I was a trustee for 16 years, which is like an alderman. So I knew the basics. But when you step up to the higher position, then you learn the new game. You learn to be more comfortable with other mayors. So now in my second term, we do have a rapport. There's a familiarity so that you can just call these people and ask, hey, did you want this? Or, did you want, what was your feeling about working on the airport with this? Or there's this construction taking place on Lake Oak Road. How are we working on the traffic? So the second term is definitely more comfortable than the first.
Yes. Could you introduce about Wheeling in general, like something unique about Wheeling has it?
Wheeling is actually a very amazing community just with our diversity alone. There's over 20 languages spoken at our high school. We have the whole rainbow of nationalities, and it's wonderful. Children in our community, they don't know what it is to be, worried about somebody because they're a slightly different color or they speak a slightly different language. It's just a matter of living in this town. And then when you go to some of the smaller grocery stores, if you go to Jewel, you can find 5 different kinds of ketchup and 10 different kinds of Cheerios. But we have grocery stores where you might find ketchup, but you will find 20 different varieties of olive oil. So, it's these little things that make the community really wonderful to experience. It's a great community.
Right. How about the maintenance budget for the winter?
For the snow?
Yes, snow.
We maybe a decade ago, there was a problem with salt availability. Not even considering the price, but there was a problem with the availability, just getting the salt. Since then, Wheeling has built our own salt dome. We always had some capacity, but now we have a capacity of, I believe it's 2,400 tons. The average snowfall, like a 2-inch snowfall, we'll use about 50 tons of salt. So technically we're good for about 40 saltings. On any given winter, we have 10 good snowfalls that require plowing, but you'll have other events that require salting.
Yeah.
So basically our budget for winter is the salt, and we buy that through a collective of other municipalities, so we get a really good price. And when we do get a good price, we can store basically more than we need for a winter. So the actual budget numbers I'm not familiar with. I know I probably should have looked that up, but I do know that our capacity for dealing with the winter, with equipment and with salt and with manpower, we've generally got that covered.
How about the supplying water system?
We are a part of a collective of communities. We get our water basically through Evanston, I believe it is, and Lake Michigan. Several decades ago, a water line was put in. Some communities tied to it, some did not. We have more than enough capacity for our industries. We used to have some big laundry services in town, and we had some big juice companies in town that consumed a lot of water, and we had plenty capacity for them. We do have above ground storage tanks. They're easy to see. The reason we have those is the system that was built pumps the water to our community. Okay? So by having the elevated tanks, water pressure gets the water to most people's homes, so we don't have to have pumps to get the water out from underground. We do have 2 wells that we maintain as backup in the event that there's a problem with our main system. And then for a short time we were actually looking at tying into another water system that comes in from the north, but we need to really study the economics of that to see if it's worth it. We do have wells, and we do have the system that we're attached to, and you have to determine, is there really enough of a risk to warrant the cost, because you don't want to waste taxpayers' money. It's my money too.
Right. Do you have any acts for increased population for Wheeling City?
From the time I was first elected until now, we have built right around 1,000 new residential units from Northgate at the town center and Uptown 500 over to Wolf Road and the Wolf Runs. Between Wolf Road and Northgate, we've built 1,000 new residential units, 1,000 new homes. And generally that's more than one person per unit. The residents are coming to our community. There's a lot of really interesting stuff happening in our community, and some of it's just geography. We are in the middle of the suburbs, and we definitely have more affluent neighbors to our north, and we have business opportunities in town and to the west and to the south, and we have housing opportunities for a very broad spectrum of economic strata. If you're looking for a home, there is probably something you can afford in Wheeling, and we're right in the middle of the business and of the transportation. We have 294 and 94 just to the east. We have our own airport. And we have the railway that goes through the middle of town. We are right in the middle where it all comes together. And it's a short drive to anything you can want. What we are focusing on more is the industry and the commerce. e-commerce has taken its effect on our stores, just like every other town. So what we're focusing more on is trying to bring back into town industry and commerce, the retail aspect of what's going on.
What are the advantages of having business in Wheeling?
Yes, what's the advantage of having a business in our town? We have an economic development advisor. We have a man, his name is Patrick Ainsworth. He's great at what he does. His job is to attract businesses to our town and to keep our businesses that are here happy. His job is to find programs to help people maintain their structures. Like financial programs, not just through the village, but through the county or the state, where we can help with reduced property tax or get grant money to businesses in town or businesses who are coming to town to improve their buildings, to make expansions. But there are many communities that don't have that position. Most all towns have a department that is called community development or something like that. Their job is code enforcement. The job of community development, they're the ones who come out and say, your roof needs repair, your fire sprinklers need to be updated, your fire extinguishers are not up to date. And every community needs that. You need the safety. But a lot of communities don't have the person on the other end who says, okay, here's the programs to help you with that. Or if you come to town, here's how we can help you improve this building. And Patrick Ainsworth, our economic development director, he's one of the major reasons you should come to Wheeling.
Can you explain about the sales taxes?
Sure. What you have to start with is the state. So the state has, I think it's a 6.25% sales tax. So across Illinois, everybody starts with that. Right now, Wheeling, Cook County, Illinois has a sales tax of 10% on non-food items and 2% on food items. So, the state, I don't know what the state's share of the 2% on the food items is. I'm familiar with the non-food because it's what I deal with the most in my business. So if you look at Lake County, who right now has 8.75% sales tax, I think it is on non-food, and right across Lake Hook Road, I have to charge 10%. I know Wheeling only gets 2% of that 10%. So if you take the 10, pull it off the 2, that leaves 8%.
Yeah.
The 6.25 that the state charges leaves 1.75% that I believe the county is getting. We do occasionally have discussions about, what can Wheeling do to help with this disparity in the sales tax. But if you just look at the math, even if we take off our 2%, you're still at 8% sales tax. And then, when I said earlier what we need is more commerce and more industry, if we drop our 2% sales tax, then we get nothing. And the sales tax is one of those things that does help balance our budget. We do try to keep our budget balanced, not just on the backs of the residents. The residents actually pay, I think we're up to 13% of their property tax bill is what comes to the village, and it's just barely 13%, I think. Most of your property tax bill here in Wheeling is going to schools and county and parks and libraries, things that we need. But the village actually gets a rather small share of the property tax. So the sales tax is one of our ways of supplementing our budget and balancing it. And we haven't really increased that, well, at least in 5 years while I've been mayor. It's not just because I've been mayor, but it is because it's 10% and it's noticeable. And businesses have a hard time with that, but there's very little we can do without damaging our bottom line.
Sure.
We're kind of stuck where we are. Now, having said that, the state has a lot of control over distribution of things like income tax. The state has adjusted the municipality's share of income tax. What I mean by that is they've reduced it years ago, and we're trying to get that back to where it could be, or should be from my perspective. And that would seriously help, significantly help. I think it's $1.2 million a year it's kind of been costing us. And that's significant in a budget. If we could get back to where we're supposed to be on that. And then even things like sales tax, a few years ago, the state discovered they could charge us for sending us our sales tax, because it goes through the state. And I thought that was very creative of them to find a way to bill us for something that's most likely done by computer, because I don't believe they have rows and rows of people doing paperwork trying to figure out where the money's supposed to go. I'm pretty sure it's all done by computer. Wheeling High School is amazing. I went to high school. I graduated from Wheeling High School in 1981. Wheeling High School now has a nanotechnology lab. Wheeling High School has a scanning electron microscope. They have a nursing program where you can be a certified nurse's assistant by the time you graduate. They do have machine shops where you can learn to operate the industrial machines for some of the businesses right here in town. I think they're getting back to having mechanics classes, which is nice. I like that. But Wheeling High School is, in my mind, also a model for understanding that not everybody is going to college. And you can get into apprenticeship programs at the high school that will prepare you for a real job. They became part of the STEM program, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, and now they've added art to it, which is wonderful, because I do believe art helps people's brains develop just by virtue of having to look at something and recreate it. You have to pay more attention to it. They have the college prep courses if you want to, if you are one of the people who can go that route. But if that's not of interest to you, they can prepare you for life. It is an amazing school. Grade schools are good too. The junior high school is good too. It's very. I'm sorry, I'm not as excited about the grade schools, and I'm not as familiar with them. But the District 214 Wheeling High School is an amazing school. And there's a place where you should do an interview. It's just
During this pandemic, is the Wheeling has any plan for?
In 2020, we waived our business license fees. It was not a lot, but it was something we could do to help the businesses. In 2021, we charged half of what the business licenses should be to try to help the businesses in town the way as much as we could. In 2020, when indoor dining stopped, we found out that the state allowed the state found a way of allowing outdoor dining.
Yes.
But we found out about that on a Thursday or Friday. By the village's next meeting that following Monday, we had drafted rules to allow restaurants, outdoor dining, and how it had to be arranged so that it was safe for customers, safe for fire access, safe for parking. Between Friday and Monday, we drafted the rules to get the restaurants open that Monday. And that Monday night we approved them, and by Tuesday they could start moving tables out. We do try to be as proactive as possible,
Yes.
or as quickly to respond as possible. When the pandemic began, we found out there was a distiller in town for alcohol,
Yeah.
and it was nothing that we had ever needed before, but it was right there in our business licenses. And so the distiller had realized there was a need for just regular hand sanitizing alcohol, but he didn't have any bottles. All he had was the whiskey bottles.
Oh.
So we still have some of that here. The Village of Wheeling went and got some because it was hard to find. So we found this guy in our town to supply us with hand sanitizer for staff, and we got masks for staff. But I did save one because liquor is prohibited in government buildings. But we have these whiskey bottles full of hand sanitizer. But it was all we could get.
Yeah.
It was funny. But we tried to make sure that everybody got what they needed as much as possible. I think the worst is done. I do believe, don't wait for government. Government works at the speed of bureaucracy. Government works slow. The virus changes fast. I believe the rules that we're living under now should have been implemented at the beginning of 2021. But looking back, it's easy to see. Hindsight is very clear. I think the reality, I believe the reality is that as the virus changes, more and more people are going to get it. More and more people will develop immunities to it. And looking at how it runs, I think it will become less and less lethal. I think less people will die from it just by virtue of how the pandemic runs. The very severe disease that was introduced kills off the hosts. I'm sorry, that's how it works. But it also kills off its home. And so the only way the disease can stay is if it's less lethal and spreads faster. This is just what I've been able to sort out from what I've been reading. I think the worst is behind us. I think this is going to be with us for a long time. I think it will become just like the flu. Don't rely on the government to tell you what to do. I think masks were a good idea when they were mandated originally. I still think they're a good idea. I think they're a polite idea. I think if you're sick, if you're sneezing or coughing, put on a mask. Be polite. Respect the people around you. The vaccines, I think they're a good idea. I know they've become very controversial. Do what you think is right. But respect the people around you. But the bottom line is, I do think the worst of it is behind us. I think the disease is going to become less and less severe, and I think our new normal is going to include corona in some form, and you're going to get the flu shot the same way you did before, and it's going to have something for corona. I hope our businesses survive, and the village is going to do what we can, but you can't. Don't depend on the government. Use your head. Stay safe. Use your head. Get vaccinated if you don't have a problem with it. If you have a problem with it, well, then you're going to have to sort things out on your own. But really, I think that's all we can do. I'm very happy to have the Korean Cultural Center in our town. Sincerely, I was happy when they first proposed it. I was thrilled when I found out they got the funds from the Endowments for the Arts. I'm happy to be the guy who's in charge at this time, and I hope everybody enjoys our community. Bring your friends, bring your family. Everybody's welcome.